It's just such a sweet jam. I love our opening theme song. It's so good. It's so good. Anyways, welcome to CASAA Live, everybody. We are here. We're actually here this weekend. We've had some scheduling changes here at the live show, but we're here this weekend, and we have some more news about that probably closer to the end of the hour. Alex has some updates to share with everybody, along with a little bit of legislation and things. But we'll start the show right out with some "Hey, how are yas?" Kristen's muted. I'm going to defer to Alex out of the gate. Hey, Alex, how we doing?
I came ready to play.
Did you?
Yeah.
What are we playing?
We're playing the weather report. It was 80 some odd degrees here yesterday, and now we're back down to 50 something.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's kind of cool. Yesterday was the first time I was like, I need to put the air conditioners in the windows, and nope.
No.
Mid-June, haven't turned on an air conditioner yet. So
we have a few times. I put it in, I don't know, like a month ago.
Nice.
Just
so
to get
that's
it out of the way. Yeah.
That's my update.
Yeah, no, it was cold this morning. I had to wear pants today. Like that was the thing. I walked out in shorts to go to work at 7 this morning and just turned right back around and came right back inside and was like, nope. Had to break out the pants today. So yeah, I wore pants today, everybody. That's my life update. Kristen, hey, how are you?
Hi, good. I was having a mystery echo where I was hearing everything twice, and I'm like, I'm closing windows, and I'm, where is that coming from? Why am I hearing it twice? And then I realized I had a whole separate CASAA Chrome window open that I hadn't noticed down the corner where I was doing all my YouTube stuff on. I'm like, there it is. I was so afraid I was going to have some weird echo if I didn't mute. So, yeah, that's what I was doing. That's why I was muted. I wasn't trying to avoid avoid the hey, how are you?
Well, hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Been busy with our new RV, fixing it up and decorating.
Do we have RV updates?
Yeah. Oh, it looks so different. I've done so much different stuff. I mean, we got rid of all the gold brass, old like 1990s brass hardware, replaced it with like rustic black stuff, and recovered the couch and the seats, and it looks like a little cabin now. It's so cool.
Oh, that's super cool. That is super cool.
One of these days I'm going to get like before and after pictures up online so you guys can see it. But
did you take any good like before pictures?
I got some pretty good before pictures. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a big fan. Like, obviously people know I'm a landscaper. It's what I do. And I love taking before and after photos of the work that I do, especially if I get to a place that's just like gross, right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Not good. Everything's overgrown. It's a jungle. And then we come in, we do all the stuff. We make it look beautiful. Those are my favorite ones. But then there's sometimes where I forget the before pictures and I'm like, see, this is the thing I did. I swear it was bad.
Yeah.
But all you get is the good now.
You can't.
You gotta remember to get those before pictures.
Yeah, I took some before pictures. Well, actually, when we first bought it, just to share, hey, look what we got. And then I've been watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos on rehabbing and remodeling and renovating RV campers. And almost everybody like is a fan of Joanna Gaines, apparently. So it's all like they paint everything white and with black, and then
everything is either distressed or shiplap.
Yeah, shiplap. So it's all, everybody's doing this farmhouse and they're just making it bright white, and it just looks like a mobile medical unit, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So we decided we kept all the oak cabinets. Like it's just sort of golden oak, which normally I'm not into that, but it's just very cabiny. So we got all sorts of like, I bought my husband a bottle opener, and it's a cast iron bear head, and you pop the bottle in the mouth of the bear.
That's amazing.
And it drops in the liquid. Just stuff like that. Just very, very.
You gotta have all like those out in the woods cabin tchotchkes across the whole thing.
And just and I put up a wall border, which I normally wouldn't do, but it's
the
very
decor of the 70s.
It's sort of kitschy, it's got deer and bears and stuff on it, and elk and stuff. And so, yeah, I'm kind of having fun with it, but I'm doing a little bit classy too. Like I put up a print, an old-fashioned print that somebody drew like in the early 1900s or 1800s of this really cool bass fish. It's got like the scientific name written underneath it and stuff like that. So that's, instead of putting an actual like fish on the wall, I put something like that. So yeah, I'm having fun with it. So I
have butterflies.
Pictures. What's that? There you go. Yep, like that, but it's a fish.
Yeah. Mine's just butterflies. It's not cool like a fish.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to share the pictures. So if you're not following me on Facebook, if you want to see the before and after, you're gonna have to follow me on Facebook.
You're gonna have to follow Kristen for all the RV updates.
I might share Instagram. I might do a video.
I'll check it out on Instagram.
I have not posted a video on my YouTube channel. Yeah.
I hate Facebook so much.
Yeah, I haven't posted a video on my YouTube channel in like I don't know how long. I think the last thing I posted was something to do with cord cutting or something. So maybe I'll have to do a video because I do have some video too. So
you should make like a big montage, put it up on YouTube.
There you go.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for patiently waiting through RV talk and weather. I think it is finally time here. We can get into some of the goody good of this week's episode. Are you ready to dive deep?
Let's get into it.
Are we ready to dive deep? Did you bring your scuba gear? Did you put on your trunks and your flippers?
I got my goggles.
You got your goggles on? Yeah, me too. We all wore our goggles today.
All
right, I'm going to roll that beautiful bean footage. This week's deep dive, what are we talking about?
So the inspiration for today's topic is going to be the FDA's recent announcement that they're moving forward with a rule to reduce the nicotine content allowed in cigarettes to minimally or non-addictive levels, whatever that means. And I know that Kristen has been reviewing the science here, so we'll get to that. But I figure, let's see, I got to do I think I need to set up the screen sharing here just so that we have the visual aid handy. Here is Jim McDonald.
To mandate all of the harm and none of the fun.
Yeah. So Jim McDonald put this out last week through Vaping 360, detailing FDA's plan to eliminate most nicotine in cigarettes. This is something that's been kind of in the works, as Jim explains, since the 90s. I think I have politely described this as a tobacco control wet dream. So this is something that they have been working for decades. It's part and parcel with what we know about the sort of quiet desires of tobacco control, which is a prohibition on sales of cigarettes and likely all tobacco products. You don't put tobacco-free generation on a bumper sticker and not follow through with the policies that you think are going to achieve that. And so it looks like, under a new administration and a new leadership at FDA, Robert Califf, and of course the CDC's very anti-nicotine Brian King, now taking over as Center for Tobacco Products Director. There's some confidence that FDA can get this done. And of course, I suspect that a lot of the folks who we've seen commenting against the menthol and flavored cigar ban will probably have the same social justice arguments to bring to this. This is part and parcel of the drug war. And so for those who are unfamiliar with this, there is already a brand of very low nicotine cigarettes on the market made by a company called 22nd Century. Which interestingly enough actually introduced a brand of cigarettes that were very high nicotine not that long ago. I don't have the article ready, but they actually paid people to get tattoos of the logo.
What was it? Red Sun? Something
Red
like
Sun.
that?
I mean, there's a couple of really good looking tattoos that shit, free tattoo. Okay, fine.
Hey, cool.
I've done
I feel like they're a company that just can't, they can't settle for anything in the middle. They're like on each extreme end, like all the nicotine or none of the nicotine.
Yeah.
I had never heard that until Jim, or was that you or Jim who posted that
Jim shared it for sure. So the VLNCs are on sale. I think Chicago was the first market. I don't know how things are going. To me, the big controversy about the Midnight brand VLNCs was that they received a modified risk order that sounds a lot more like a therapeutic claim. As it turns out, some of the stuff that they are, I guess, they're sort of required to include in their marketing statements came from FDA. It wasn't necessarily part of their application, but FDA required them to include a statement along the lines of this can help you smoke fewer cigarettes or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it is. But it's ridiculous. It's total nonsense. And as we see here in the picture with Scott Gottlieb's smiling face, no socks featured here, all of the death and none of the fun, as Logan pointed out. Smoking very low nicotine cigarettes does not reduce your risk of cancer, heart disease, or any of the other smoking attributable diseases. And so this is all very kind of ridiculous pie in the sky kind of stuff. But Kristen, you've reviewed some of the science in this, and I'm curious, are we off base in opposing this, or is this is this an actual positive move here?
Well, that's a tough question.
That's a loaded question. I just want to know if all the science lacks just as much fun as the cigarettes do.
Generally, and this is pretty dry, so that's kind of what concerns me. Let me share my screen here. Okay, well, one thing I'd like to point out when you were talking about whoops, that's something when I want. You were talking about how long ago this happened, and I was talking about how Neil Benowitz has been in before the show about how long he's been involved in this, and I didn't realize he was so heavily into. I knew he supported them, but I didn't realize he had done so much research on them. And this is from 2013, and I will put all of these links in the description after the show. He talks about reducing the nicotine, but look at the top here. Endgame proposal. That kind of really supports what Alex was saying about it. This has been their, well, as he put it so succinctly, wet dream. But reducing the nicotine content to make cigarettes less addictive. And if you look right here, he talks about how in 1994, he and Henningfield proposed the idea of federal regulation of nicotine content of cigarettes, such as nicotine content to be reduced over time, resulting in lower intake. And like he originally proposed that they should do it over time, not just now you have to be 0.4 milligrams of nicotine. And they kind of throw around both 2.4 milligrams and I think it was 0.4 milligrams. But as I was reading through this, I thought, well, that's interesting. That's what he originally proposed. But as I was reading through it, he's like, oh, yeah, but you know what? The more we think about it, we may as well just, we don't have any evidence that doing it slowly is going to be any better. So we may as well just, dump it on them. He didn't put it that way as me summarizing. But yeah, this is what this study was talking about here. And the thing is that, yeah, the studies do show that during the studies that people do not compensate. And that's the big thing that you see a lot of vapors and people who are against this claiming. They say, oh, people are just going to smoke more because they're going to want the nicotine. They're going to be trying to get the nicotine. And during these studies, they do not. They have found that the people who are using the test cigarette, the 0.4 cigarette, don't smoke anymore. They find that sometimes they'll do it in the first couple days and then it tapers off. And then by the end of the study, they're not smoking any more than what the people who have the control cigarettes have. They also find that people who use these cigarettes don't have really higher anxiety by the end of the study. They'll start off kind of a little higher, just like you would if you are getting rid of it. And bear with me, I see the chat's already being like, but bear with me, I'm going to get to it. Because most of you have heard how I feel about these. And so they find that people don't have higher anxiety or greater withdrawal symptoms, all the things that you figure would happen during these studies, they do not happen. The problem is, and let me get to my notes here, you know, and that's all fine and great. And that's what they're using as their proof, which is ironic because if this was the kind of evidence we needed to have e-cigarettes approved, they'd all be on the market now, because that's
Honestly,
what I'm talking about.
All I'm hearing is that nicotine is not this incredibly addictive chemical, because if people can just shift and without a whole lot of anxiety or withdrawal symptoms and whatever, but yet isn't nicotine as addictive as heroin and cocaine?
Right.
That's all I'm hearing right now, though, is if that's the case.
And that's one of the points that, and you know, and going along with that, I'm going to jump around here a little bit now because you brought that up. But yeah, that was one of the things that I thought. It's like, well, if they don't need the nicotine all that often, that means they'll just keep smoking them without the nicotine, right? You know, and one of the things I thought of too is that the ongoing use of 0 milligram vapor products. A lot of people who vape switch, you know, eventually get themselves down to 0, but they never actually quit vaping. They keep vaping 0 nicotine because they just like the feel of it, they like the taste or whatever.
So we've talked about all the other sensory, habitual, ritual aspects of smoking and vaping. That's just goes well beyond nicotine in and of itself.
Right. So so that was one of the things I thought of, is like, okay, well, what you're saying is these people, they didn't compensate, but they didn't really smoke a lot less either. I mean, they did smoke less. Usually by the end of the study, they were smoking less cigarettes, probably because they weren't getting much out of them, but they were still smoking a good amount. I'd say at least 60 to 70%, not enough to reduce any harm. And they did say that, and there were studies that showed that they also were more likely to try quitting smoking afterwards. But none of these studies followed up after that. They'd call them after 30 days and say, oh, did you try quitting smoking? And they said yes. And okay, look, great, you tried quitting smoking. Well, we all know people can go 3 months. I mean, most of us have, you know, gone a few months by quitting smoking. It's usually within 3 to 6 months that you are like, screw this, and you go back to your cigarettes. At least for me personally. So it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't show that they're going to keep having been quit. And you have to wonder how many times they're going to keep going back, even just to feel like they're smoking, go back to just using these cigarettes.
Yeah, what we need to see is 3-year, 5-year kind of follow-ups,
The
which obviously,
you know,
hopefully we would get to, or even, even 1 year. Hopefully we would get to that. Maybe it's just too early in all of this research to be there, but
even 6 months. I mean, because none of them have gone that far that I was able to find. Now, granted, there's a lot of studies out there, and you have to dig, and so you can find some of them on Century 21's or 22's. Century 21, that's real estate.
Yeah, that was their old company.
Real estate site. The real estate site will not have like a nicotine study. 22nd Century or whatever it is that their name is. They do have a lot of studies, but as you read through these studies, you start to see a lot of things like low compliance. You know, you read all this great stuff, It's like, well, yeah, in one study, all this great stuff happened with the 39% of the people who were still with the study by the end. 39%. So, that means over 60% of the people weren't compliant. They were smoking their own cigarettes, or they were vaping, or they were using snus. They were using some kind of supplemental nicotine, which that could keep people smoking. You know, very often people with mental health issues were excluded from the study because they had mental health issues. Well, we all know that smoking is very high in people with mental health.
I was going to say, so for people who smoke at disproportionately higher rates and who tend to smoke more in general are being excluded from a study.
And that there were 2 exceptions. One study did specifically looked at people. The one that I found, I didn't find the second one. He referenced it in the study. And again, I will put all these study links in there. But one study did look at them and did find that pretty much they were the same results as with people without mental health issues. But again, all the same caveats, all the same limitations, you know, often as well with these studies, often their control or their comparison cigarette there's some that where they have to smoke their own cigarettes, and there's some where they give them a control cigarettes. In the control cigarettes, everyone that I came across, the control cigarettes were over 15 milligrams per cigarette. So it's
That's
like they use, yeah, they
Newport
like
country.
use the strongest thing that they could find as a comparison. And really strangely, during some of these studies, their smoking went up with the highest amount of nicotine in it. So it's like you have to ask what's going on here. Why would suddenly they're smoking more? Well, part of it is they're a lot of times they're giving them to them for free, you know, and they do
Sure.
try to account
Smoke
for
'em if
that.
you've got them.
Right, smoking if you got them. But like I said, in general, there was no compensatory behavior that was found after people had acclimated to the low nicotine cigarette. But again, the studies were usually only a couple weeks. The studies usually, sometimes they had 10, 16, 20 people. So that's not quite going to give you what's going to happen. Sometimes they actually locked them in a hotel. And even in the one where they locked them in a hotel and they couldn't get anything else but these very low nicotine cigarettes, 2 people were found to have cheated somehow. They found high levels of nicotine in them. Well, actually, it's the cotinine or whatever that they find.
Listen, if we can't keep things out of prison, you're
Right?
not keeping things out of a hotel. I don't care how hard you try.
But one of the things that also concerns me, let me see if I can pull this one up, is that so talking about real life, talk about what's going to happen if this was all they have. Talk about what's going to happen if you suddenly take 30 million people and you're forcing them to essentially quit nicotine cold turkey. You know, because isn't it something like 30 million people still smoke? It's down from what it used to be. And the problem is, and I found this study where, well, I'm just going to talk about that there's also an interesting study that you might find interesting study you might find interesting. Alex, there's a study about menthol, the difference of these very low, for menthol, people who smoke menthol, they struggled more with the very low nicotine cigarettes for some reason. But then I found another study.
Were they given menthol VLNC?
Yeah. And then I found other ones that where the menthol wasn't an issue, you know, that they actually did better. So it's like there's a lot of, and it's just so funny because if any of this stuff was what the vape industry was sharing or was putting forth as science, they'd be like, this is not enough. It's not enough time. This is not enough science. It's too contradictory. I mean, the science is just not there from what I can tell. It's all so preliminary, and none of it is
high dropout rates.
Yeah. And here's another situation that, oh no, that's not the one I wanted. Where the hell did that go now? Okay, there was a whole study on where is it? What
it's
people
probably
would,
in that other pesky Google Chrome tab, the
no,
one
I
that
got
makes
it.
all the noise.
No, I closed that. Well, there was another, and now I can't find it, but there was another study. I'll close this window. There was another study that showed asked people who smoke, what would you do if all you had left to smoke was the very low nicotine cigarettes? And almost universally, they said they'd go to Indian reservations, they'd look into black market cigarettes, you know, and that's not anything that any of these studies even acknowledge as a possibility. They pretend that if you do this, people won't be able to get any other kind of cigarettes. I mean, they seem to go by this idea that, so their studies are in a bubble, and their conclusions are that we're all going to be in that same bubble, and we're not. So that was a big issue. And the other thing that was funny is that, well, not funny, but yes, so none of the studies for adult smokers or short term. I'm trying to find what all I had on here for my points. I'm almost done.
Yeah, it is kind of I don't even have the word for it, but disingenuous, appalling, gross when researchers, particularly like FDA, disregards the possibility of an illicit market. Like they downplay it or pretend like it's not going to happen when it inevitably is going to happen. It's already happening without this mandate.
Yeah,
we already have a huge illicit market for cigarettes, regardless of mandating nicotine levels. So when you strip nicotine from the legal regulated market of these products. I mean, you don't even really need science to prove that. Like we should have science to demonstrate this, but all you have to do is look around. Like Alex and I both live in New York State, where we have like one of the largest illicit markets for cigarettes in the country, if not the largest.
And I would assume now we have the largest illicit market for flavored vapor products. Probably.
Again, if not the largest one of, maybe alongside Massachusetts or something. But
yeah,
I mean, it's absurd to think that, FDA is just going to disregard that as a possibility, or that it won't be large enough to concern themselves with. Like, why can we not learn from other countries? Australia is a prime example of what happens when you over-regulate these products. I mean, they haven't mandated VLNCs, but their tax rates on cigarettes are astonishingly high, which is yet a barrier in and of itself for people to access the products they want to enjoy. Australia has a massive illicit market for cigarettes.
Well, and so here's a perfect example
for nicotine products in general, really.
Right. So I had pulled this in my notes because I was going to talk about that because I had that other article that talks about how adults, who smoke, what they say they would do if very low nicotine cigarettes became the norm. And in that this Endgame thing that Benowitz wrote, under this section, he talks about about having alternate products and the major challenge of an unlevel playing field, that tobacco products are far or smoking cigarettes are more available and easier to get than other products that are safer. And so it says, since this initial proposal, new products that could arguably be regulated either as tobacco or nicotine, and which appear to contain substantially fewer toxicants than traditional tobacco products have been marketed: lozenges, dissolving strips, sticks, pouches, and cigarette-like devices. Remember, this is 2013, so they were still a little bit clueless about vaping. Such products and NRT may provide the support that's at least temporarily needed for some smokers to give up cigarettes entirely and to manage in a world where nicotine use by burning tobacco is less available. An additional regulatory approach that could be incorporated into nicotine policy is differential taxation. So they're calling for less taxes, making them more appealing. But here it is. The potential threat of contraband cigarettes. There is a possibility that decreased access to the forms of tobacco that addicted users most want, namely nicotine-containing cigarettes, will increase the demand for contraband cigarettes. Even if this occurred, keep in mind that other study, it is difficult to envision that such a massive scale of contraband could emerge so as to rival the present pipeline of cigarettes that, for example, numbers more than 1 billion per day in the USA. They can't imagine a big...
How many people use illicit substances in this country?
Right? How many people use marijuana that's never been legal up until recently, and it was a huge market? I mean, it just... And so, keeping in mind that other study I was talking about, it was just crazy that they were saying this, because there it is. Interest in illicit purchase of cigarettes under very low nicotine content product standard. This study came out in 2019, so it is after but just that one by Benowitz, the Endgame thing, it just I don't know, there's just something about it that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. But this whole article, I will share all these, but this one talks about the results. It says smokers who learned about the VLNC standard were more likely to be very or extremely interested in purchasing regular cigarettes illicitly from a website compared to smokers in the control group. They were also more interested in illicitly buying cigarettes from a street vendor and a store on an Indian reservation compared to the control. So, I mean, it doesn't even matter.
Anybody who's got a backpack full of the good,
it also says that. It also says the impact of learning about the VLNC standard on interest in illicit purchases did not differ by smoking frequency or current e-cigarette use. I thought that was interesting too. And of course, then out of all of that, they talk about, and this is one of my biggest things, is that if people are finding that they can still smoke the VLNCs without the nicotine in it, and it doesn't really reduce, it's not making them vape more, but it's not making them vape, or not vape, smoke more, but it's not making them smoke that much less either. On top of that, they have this misperception that the cigarettes are better for them, that they're less carcinogenic. It says many smokers had the misperception that smoking them is less likely to cause cancer, and some stated that they would be less likely to quit. A VLNC standard may be more effective if accompanied by a communication campaign that emphasizes the continued dangers of smoking them due to the many toxic chemicals in smoke. But
don't leave that to FDA.
Right, and that's what I was talking about before the show. I mean, do you think that they're really going to do that? Do you think that these cigarette companies, including 22nd Century, whatever their name is, isn't going to have it in its financial interest for people to keep smoking these if they can? Do they really mean it when they say, "Oh, we want to go out of business because nobody's smoking anymore"? Baloney. I mean, the only pro from this that I can find is that it's unlikely for young people who try the product to get enough nicotine to satisfy them that they're going to want to keep using it. That's really the only.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning of this, it always has seemed like more of a prevention thing than anything. They're not trying to appeal to people who smoke or help them in any way. You're already a smoker and on your way to death, so whatever, you be damned. But the kids, we can still save the kids, and that's the biggest thing here. My question: if the science doesn't show that these really do a whole lot in the long run in terms of helping current smokers reduce the number of cigarettes and carcinogens and toxins and tar and yada, yada, yada that they're putting into their bodies, is it just prevention then? Is that the only goal? Are we still just so laser focused on preventing kids from using a virtually benign substance than we are about helping 30 million people in this country quit? Like, is that it? Is that what it all boils down to?
I have a follow-up question to that, which is, we just saw from the National Youth Tobacco Survey that smoking among youth is now below 2%. I mean, we are on
without even a mandate.
We are on the precipice of a generation of kids who have no interest in picking up cigarettes because they know it's dangerous. They don't want the harm. They are convinced kids aren't idiots. And which also goes to say that all of the lies that they've been told about nicotine and vaping and all of this stuff, they're going to figure it out at some point, and that's going to be pretty bad for public health people. So is this even necessary as a form of prevention?
Exactly. To answer your question, Logan, that I've heard them admit that it's not going to do much for people who are currently smoking. And I believe that's why they're doing these studies and kind of trying to, because people brought that up. Well, how's that going to help people who are going to actually die from smoking? What about people who are already smoking? What are we doing for them? Besides being cruel and just yanking away their nicotine.
Right. Do we just fall back on that, age-old quit or die?
Yeah. And so that's why they're kind of pushing this. Oh, well, they'll smoke less, which the irony, because if you look at a lot of this ANT stuff over the years, they have always said, well, cutting back just doesn't, you're still putting yourself in danger. Cutting back doesn't do anything. You need to quit completely. So now that story is kind of changing. Now it's a good thing that you've cut back on 3 cigarettes a day, and that's about what it comes to. Because and it's weird because, a lot of times that, they do some things that we've criticized. That they use people who aren't, who haven't expressed the desire to quit, so they're not just, gaming the system by using people who already want to quit. Sometimes they've paid them a significant amount of money to do this, and paid them money for how many cigarettes they turn in at the end. Isn't that interesting? But not all of them do that. But they're trying to get it to look like it actually is helping people who currently smoke. But again, if the vape industry had turned in something at this level, the FDA would have rejected it immediately. This is not enough. It's too short term. It's too the cohorts are too small. There's just so many limitations and so many caveats. So, and then the other thing is that the signs that people who have used these have expressed more interest in quitting. And and again, these are people who weren't initially saying they were quit, but like one study, they said, hey, 31% of the people who used the very low nicotine after the study actually expressed an interest in quitting, which was great. And then I kept reading. I'm like, yeah, but 39% of the people using the 50 milligram stuff said that they had it. So more people who were using the regular nicotine were saying that but they didn't talk about that, and so that they're getting away with this and that they're using that as being, hey, look, this is helping people who smoke too. But yeah, you're right. It's really all about prevention.
That's what it boils down to.
And
it doesn't boil
Alex
down
is absolutely
to
right, is that kids don't even have they're not even really smoking anymore. So who is this really helping? It's helping a tiny percent of kids maybe not start. And most of those kids are already going to vaping. And like I put in our tweet and our question about this, is that leads me to why should vapors care about this? Why should vapors be like, I don't care. They're not, it's smoking. I don't smoke anymore. Well, the thing is that they do this and then they claim it works, which is not really. They'll claim it's working, and then they'll go, oh, well, let's just do that with vaping, and then we get people off vaping too. Yeah. Don't think they won't do it. Don't think
they've done it with everything else. I mean, we can do this until we're blue in the face on how many things. We've talked about that slippery slope, boiling frog, whatever the case may be, and people who use whatever safer methods, smokeless or vaping or whatever, say, well, I don't care that they banned smoking here, or I don't care that they've done this with smoking there, but it always eventually makes its way to also affecting people who vape or use other products. So
yeah.
Now
Alex, you're right. There's no reason. You were gone, but yeah, I agree with you. There's no reason for there's no justification for it then, because if it's not, and I think that might be because teen smoking is so low now. That's why they're pushing this. Oh, but it does help people quit smoking. It helps them cut down from 20 cigarettes to 17. I mean, which in the past, if you said to them, oh, is it okay if, am I better off if I cut down from 20 cigarettes to 17? They would have laughed in your face and said, no, you need to get off it all, abstinence. Now all of a sudden cutting down to 17 from 20 is, look, that's a good thing.
Do you think this is like their version of harm reduction? Now that we're kind of slowly starting to embrace more harm reduction, this is like their veiled bullshit version.
It is, Alex. It is. If you look at these studies, as far as
I'm not going to validate this as a form of harm reduction. I think that's total bullshit. I think this is coercion
in their brain.
Yeah. There's no harm reduction here. This is not meeting people where they're at. It is coercion. It's forcing people if they implement this the way that we think they are, which is just mandating all cigarettes sold in the United States are very low nicotine. It's coercion.
Yeah,
so
100%.
I don't care what they say about it.
But if you read these studies, and again, I'll put the links in the description after, but if you read them, they are pushing that. They are saying, look, they're having less exposure. There's less exposure. They're smoking less, so it's less exposure. So they're laying that ground for trying to make it like it's some kind of harm reduction, which if vaping still had that much exposure, I mean, they're having a fuss over what tiny trace, barely detectable stuff that we're finding in e-liquid, and we're talking about they're calling this less CO2 and there's less nicotine.
No, they're having a conniption about dual use.
Yeah.
So if dual use is a big issue, then very low nicotine cigarettes is not a solution at all.
No, not at all. And I don't think, and Logan had asked me before the show, it's like, well, maybe there's a place for them. And this is why I say, no, there's not, because you've got people who will still keep smoking them just because they like to smoke. They'll use them with added nicotine stuff, and they're going to have the impression, no matter what the FDA or anybody says, that they're safer, because people are so convinced that nicotine is what causes all the disease and just, death and all that. and you're not going to get to everybody to convince them that it's not. And so they've already burned that bridge behind them. So it's not going to do anybody any good. If anything, it'll just keep people smoking and not switching to vaping because I think it's better.
I think, I mean, we've discussed this before, and I think, you know, a more appropriate way to perhaps introduce very low nicotine cigarettes is actually kind of the way this has been done. I totally disagree with the modified risk order. I don't think it's appropriate for any combustible product. So, you know, we definitely oppose that. But I think that if tobacco companies were allowed to market a range of nicotine strengths and allow the consumer to choose, I think people would. I do suspect, and I think perhaps some of the studies you mentioned, you know, just this idea of people using VLNCs being maybe in a better position to quit. I think that's a choice that people who smoke will make. If you can get your, you know, your same experience with your brand of cigarette, but with something with, you know, very low nicotine content, and you can make that choice, just like what people do with vaping, sliding down the nicotine content scale until they get to zero. If that's your goal, I think very low nicotine cigarettes can be used as a part of a strategy to better position people to take advantage of NRT or be in a better position to switch completely to vaping or another smoke-free product. I think that's totally appropriate. But the way that it sounds like they're rolling this out isn't anything close to that.
Oh no, because they're just going to dump you.
But in no way having some, obviously not like mandated across the board, whatever, but having VLNCs on the market, it can't do more harm.
I think it can.
I just don't see how it does more harm than having, like, it's just another cigarette. Like if people are going to keep smoking, those same people, you know what I mean? Like there's no real added harm as long as there's appropriate communications, as long as there's appropriate marketing, as long as, which again, that's a massive caveat for the US public health system, period. But if we had appropriate communications, honest communications about all of the products that are available to people, having VLNCs alongside anything else, to me, just feels like another tool in the toolbox. Like there's going to be people that it does help. I mean, you've demonstrated that, whether it's low or even if it's only for a month, there are people that these products have helped, or at least encouraged to some degree to attempt to quit, or whatever the case may be. Maybe this is just a stepping stone along the way. And again, not the vast majority, not all the dropouts, not all the other things. But actually, I guess I'm still missing too the idea that like these products should not exist anywhere. Like that's
okay. Can I respond?
Well, hold on. Before we get too far away from it, I did mention, we did get a question in chat about what do we mean by dual use.
Oh yeah.
Jazzy L. Ferrer, sorry if I mispronounced your handle there, asked the question. Dual use is using not necessarily at the literal same time, but using both a combustible product and a smoke-free product. It's probably the most simple way to say it, but it's a crappy term. It doesn't really mean much, but that's something they throw around all the time. So just wanted to clear that up before we got too far away from it.
I did notice that earlier and I forgot to. Okay. First of all, one of your requirements is proper communication, and our government has more than proven that it cannot communicate.
Right. Yeah, it's a massive caveat.
So that won't happen. So we know that won't happen. Aside from that, we know we have anti-nicotine tobacco zealots who want to see people completely off of any kind of nicotine. Okay. So it would behoove them to have people using the very low nicotine stuff and not accepting that vaping is better for them, that vaping is healthier. Okay. They'd rather see them keep smoking, but get forced off of nicotine and leave completely than switch to a safer alternative and keeping using nicotine, because then teens will become addicted to the nicotine vaping. Okay. So you've got this agenda here. It's a built-in agenda that's going to stop people from knowing the truth. Okay. That's the way I see it. And I may sound like a conspiracy theorist, but we have seen this. It's not like we haven't seen this happen. It's their MO. Okay. So that's one thing. So we're not going to get the communication. The second thing is just people in real life who are going to choose to use VLN cigarettes. They're going to be people who care about their health, who think that they want to try quit smoking. They're going to think that these are healthier because they have less nicotine. It's not going to be that 30% of the people who smoke who don't care. They're like, screw it. This is my life. Leave me alone. And more power to them, in my opinion. But okay, so those people aren't going to choose to use VLNs. All right. So now you've got this other group. These are people who are more like kind of like vapors who, maybe they didn't think they could quit smoking. They didn't know how they were going to do it. They've tried in the past and failed, kind of found vaping. And that's what helped them eventually get off the cigarettes. The difference is that VLNs are going to divert the people who may have migrated over and tried vaping, which is much safer process while they're doing it. The dual use still does reduce the smoking. Okay. Much more significantly, you get accidental quitters. Okay. Whereas with the VLNs, if it's next to regular cigarettes, they're just going to keep smoking until they give up and go back to smoking again. Whereas
sure, but that just means that you're maintaining harm. You're not increasing harm.
You are increasing harm because you're diverting them away from something that's safer. You're fooling people into thinking they can try this very low nicotine. It's going to help them quit. They're going to keep hurting themselves while they're doing it. Whereas if they would just try vaping, they might have turned into an accidental.
Agreed. And that just comes back
to harm by
omission.
It's harm by diversion, because they may have gone to vaping, but now they're convinced that, these cigarettes are safer because they don't have any nicotine in them. And they're going to think that's better for them, especially with all the lies that the answer's saying about vaping.
Okay, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in a little bit. I think you've had the soapbox for a while here, so I do want to say you're absolutely right. There is absolutely no reason any of us should have any faith. First of all, don't have any faith in your government. Period. Second of all, FDA has clearly demonstrated they are incapable of communicating the risks appropriately on tobacco and nicotine products. So there's absolutely no reason we should expect them to turn that around. However, if they were to grant modified risk orders for all other companies doing very low nicotine cigarettes, I still believe the step down approach, giving consumers the choice to choose lower nicotine content cigarettes, would be a good thing. But again, this all hinges on whether or not FDA can come out and correct the record about risks associated with nicotine, which none of us should hold our breath that that's ever going to happen.
And vaping.
But they may find themselves in a position where they absolutely have to. So until that happens, though, there is no expectation that FDA will set the record straight on any of this. The other way that I personally want to look at this, I am looking at this, is, consistent with this idea that cigarette manufacturers would be able to have that range of nicotine strengths. I think it's appropriate to look at this as another tool in the toolbox. We may actually, if consumers have that choice of stepping down nicotine content of their cigarettes, we may actually end up with more accidental quitters, because now people feel like they are in a position to quit. They may feel in a better position to adopt vaping or another smoke-free alternative. I don't think it's not good. It's not productive to talk about vaping as a silver bullet. There's no silver bullet here.
I don't think it is.
And I think we sort of we toe that line a little bit, because we do have an emphasis on vaping. All of our members are people who have experienced the benefits of switching from smoking to vaping, all of that. And it really is the thing that's front and center in the debate here. But it is not a silver bullet. And I just honestly think that anything that puts people closer to feeling comfortable with breaking away from smoking is a good thing. But we have to be able to make that decision ourselves. This can't be something that's mandated from at the federal level. And if and when they do this, just like what we saw with the study in Canada about banning menthol, most people are just going to keep smoking. And a not insignificant number of those people are going to try to find full strength cigarettes manufactured in other countries, manufactured in shady operations domestically. They're going to seek those products out on the illicit market, and they're going to keep smoking. And now we get into the justice issues here, where it may not be illegal for a person to purchase, use, or possess a full strength nicotine product as per FDA or even the state law, but they are purchasing and possessing untaxed cigarettes. That is something that's out of the control of FDA. That's something that's enforced at the state and federal level as well. You're talking about evading federal taxes, state taxes, all the things. And if you've ever known a state to just leave money laying around, love to hear about it, because I don't think that they're going to let millions of dollars of tax revenue from full strength cigarettes just go uncollected.
Yeah.
And I agree. I shouldn't have just said vaping. I should have said smokeless products, because to me, I fully believe that trying to reduce your nicotine using something that's smoke free over the course of 6 months, if you're going to dual use, I'd rather see somebody using, snus or a nicotine pouch or vaping or something that's smoke free while they're trying to do it, than continue to smoke, go back to smoking regulars, smoke VLNCs, then go back to regulars. I mean, going back there, you're not reducing harm at all. At least if they're trying to find the right vape or the right snus or the whatever, I just would rather see them. I feel like this would divert people from seeking out smokeless, especially like you said, the FDA and the CDC are so bad. Not only are they so bad at communicating the continuum of risk and how much less risky these other products are, people are going to think the Vera Low Nicotine ones are just as safe as vaping, the way they've made vaping sound. And that Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids and Truth are going to reinforce that as much as they can, because they'd rather see people keep smoking and then quit completely or just die. Please just die on us, is what they're thinking. Then have people move over to using safer nicotine products. They don't want that, and they're going to do everything they can.
And it's something you pointed out that I didn't really even think about before was you've already sort of pointed out the hypocrisy here in the reduction, right? So they're heralding people reducing the number of cigarettes they smoke with VLNCs as a good thing, but that same kind of standard or observation doesn't apply to smoke-free products and dual use. Once again, it's sort of like we've kind of caught them in yet another lie. It's
sure.
It's sort of ridiculous.
It's whatever narrative works at the time,
right?
And I don't know. I just on a personal note, I'm always going to default to the individual, and we can sit here and say what we think and feel and wish and would and could and may and whatever about what we think people should quit with or divert to or switch to or whatever. But at the end of the day, my default is autonomy and people having the choice to make those decisions for themselves and having the options available to them. And like, that's kind of my soapbox here is like, if people wanted to use these products, as long as they're, again, that caveat of communication, as long as they know what these products are, they know that it comes with all the baggage of all the harm of any other combustible product, you're just reducing your nicotine. And if we had correct perceptions of nicotine and the lack of harms associated there, then allowing consumers to choose to use these products for themselves, for these products to exist on the shelves for people to buy, to me is just it's just allowing people to do the thing, to be people.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
My default is always going to be like autonomy and consumers' choice, and
right,
so I still kind of fall into that camp.
But they shouldn't be fooled into choosing it. I feel like they're getting fooled into choosing it. That's the problem. I think.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I agree with you 100%.
If they knew the truth, I think if they knew the truth about smoke-free tobacco and they knew the truth about VLN cigarettes, they'd probably not choose to use the VLN cigarettes. I think anybody who chooses it are going to be choosing it under the lie that they're better for them. Under the guise of this. That's my problem with it. As
it stands, and CASAA has opposed this. We oppose the modified risk application for 22nd century. we're on the record opposing this and expressing, I think, very similar concerns. The misperception of risk around nicotine is not helpful. And you're exactly right that I think people are being, this is a sentence I'm working on for a report that we're doing. It is, FDA is essentially leveraging the public's misunderstanding here and actually
100%.
counting on the public perceiving this outsized risk of nicotine use in order to promote bullshit products like very low nicotine cigarettes. And so it's part of the strategy. They're probably never going to admit to that, but it is dishonest. It is manipulative. And I don't think that the outcomes are going to be as great as they think it is. I think it is actually complicating matters. And to your point, I think making things worse. And there is a much more productive way, an honest way to go about this. And with that, I think
Can I make one more thing? I just want to make it really clear
quickly.
Is that I don't think they should ban cigarettes. That's how much I'm for choice.
Right.
Okay. And that's what I want people to understand.
I agree. 100%.
I don't want cigarettes banned. I think they should be able to choose it. I just think these VLN cigarettes are bad because they're fooling people, and people will choose those over safer products because of what the message is with them and what they've been saying about nicotine. And I think they'll be worse for public health because it's going to stop people from switching to safer products. So I don't want
it's our public health communications and the marketing and all of that baggage that comes with it that's bad, not necessarily these products existing for consumers to use that's bad.
Right. Yeah, they can exist, but I don't think anybody would use them if they knew the truth,
So we are sort of at the end of the hour here. We were going to keep this to an hour today. So I think we've kind of wrapped this up. And just to succinctly actually answer the question of the title of our podcast today, is the FDA canceling nicotine? The FDA is actually prohibited by law from reducing nicotine content down to 0. They are not able to ban cigarettes. So until
I was just
that
going to say, that point kind of came up earlier about, banning cigarettes. What would that take? That would literally take like a congressional act, opening up the Tobacco Control Act.
They've already demonstrated that it's not that hard to amend the Tobacco Control Act when they included synthetic nicotine recently. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. It remains a horrible idea. But as it stands now, FDA cannot ban cigarettes or reduce
it down to just about nothing.
Right.
But not
and even that
nothing.
is, as FDA moves forward with this rulemaking, and we will have an engagement up for this. So far, they've done the advance notice of proposed rulemaking, which did have a comment period. But once they actually propose the rule, comments will be open, just like with the menthol, and we'll have an engagement up for that, and encourage all of our members to participate. And just to kind of wrap things up, we don't really have a legislative rundown this week. The two things that are active on our site for people to participate in is, of course, commenting on the FDA menthol and cigar flavor ban. This was recently extended. They got enough comments to come in to extend the comment period to August 2nd. So definitely take advantage of this that we have up on our site, get all the background and talking points and things that you might want to consider and include in your comments. Remember, there are 2 rules to comment on, and we've got blank fields for both of them. Make it really easy for everybody to participate. And so this is up and active. The other thing that I will
before you move on that note, really quick, you don't have to pull it up and show it, but there is a blurb from CTP, and I'd shared it to you and Kristen earlier, kind of highlighting FDA saying, what do they say? I can just read it out here. FDA is extending the comment period to a total of 90 days following a request from the public. FDA also received requests to not extend the comment period from public health organizations. However, FDA believes that a 90-day comment period is appropriate.
Yeah,
which I just think is kind of cool and funny all in and of itself.
It's like, actually
they got a lot of requests not to do this from public health organizations, but FDA was like, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, not to rain on your parade or anything, but this seems pretty typical. 60 days is really an unreasonable period of time for people to come up with substantive comments on these rules. 90 days is arguably not enough either. But I think as far as the tobacco industry is concerned, it doesn't matter because, as Jim pointed out in his article, with the very low nicotine cigarettes, they are likely to be tied up with lawsuits for a long time. Even if FDA goes forward with the menthol ban, it's probably going to take a couple of years. And that, I think, is a conservative estimate. FDA, of course, at this point is well known for missing deadlines. But so all of that to say that, yes, the comment period has been extended. So get your typing fingers ready and share your thoughts with FDA. And we've made it really easy for people to do. The other thing,
my parade has officially been rained out, so you can carry on.
The other thing that we are paying attention to and will likely have something up for people to comment is this from the American Vapor Manufacturers. This is a citizens petition. This was just published yesterday, I believe, so I don't have anything up for it yet. I just actually went through and read everything. We'll probably come back and discuss this. We'll want to. The schedule change is that we're going to be taking the rest of the summer off, and so we may not have discussion about this unless it's warranted. But we'll come back in September. So yeah, if you need to jot down that programming note, I think it was September 10th would be the day that we would come back and do the podcast live on Saturdays. So we will be back. We do need a break and take some time and recuperate and get our brains back in order. But in the interim, be on the lookout for us to put up an engagement to participate in this. It's a citizens petition. For those who've been playing the home game for a couple of years, you may remember Enjoy had a citizens petition back in 2017 to extend to push back the deadline for PMTA applications. This did have some influence on FDA, and FDA in 2017 made their sort of comprehensive nicotine regulation announcement, which did push the deadline back for vapor products to 2022. Unfortunately, the moralizing public health organization sued FDA and got that deadline moved up to 2020
2021. It moved back a year.
Well, the deadline for submitting the applications was 2020, and then FDA had to make a decision by 2021, which they're still, because they retained their enforcement discretion and actually didn't have to do any of this. They brought it back to 2021, but then the Judge Grimm and his whole decision brought it to 2020 from there. No, they what they originally wanted was 2018. They wanted the original deadline. It retroactively would have removed products from the market. And FDA argued that that's not enough time, or that's too risky. There's a net public health harm there. And so FDA actually asked for at least 10 months. I think a lot of people suspect that had to do with Juul completing their applications. Reynolds already had their applications in. Some other companies already had their applications in. So that wasn't really the big factor. But the expectation there was that FDA would, in a year, come to some conclusion about the Juul application, which they have not, is typical for FDA, missing deadlines, court mandated or not. And of course, I am, not a legal expert, but I still maintain the belief that FDA actually didn't have to do any of this because, as per the judge's order, FDA retained all of their enforcement discretion and reserves the right to enforce on a case-by-case basis. Whatever their criteria for that are, who knows?
FDA, but I do what I want.
Anyway, all of this to say there is currently an opportunity to comment. You can go to regulations.gov. And I know that Amanda tweeted about this. If you follow Amanda Wheeler on Twitter, she has the link on her tweet about this. You can go and leave your comment. We will likely be putting up an engagement for this to make it easier for folks.
I just shared the link to that tweet in the chat.
Excellent. What this does is this is about the synthetic nicotine rule. And this would allow manufacturers who timely file PMTAs with FDA to keep their products made with synthetic nicotine on the market throughout the scientific review process. For those of you who followed the synthetic nicotine drama, Congress, well, FDA ultimately gave manufacturers 90 days to get their applications in and otherwise take products off the market. There's studies and research that are required for this that take longer than 90 days to do. It is physically impossible for these companies to get robust, acceptable applications in on time that FDA would accept. This is very similar to how the deeming rule was rolled out. Some of these trials take more than 3 years to complete. The industry was given 2. And so this is characteristic of FDA. This is obviously not a good faith effort to get applications in and protect consumers. This is about taking products off the market and punishing the industry for exploiting a workaround, which, you can call it a loophole if you want. I don't believe that. I believe that Congress in 2007, when the language of the Tobacco Control Act was presented, they didn't believe that synthetic nicotine would be a viable product. Tobacco companies didn't believe it was going to be a viable product. Nobody had any reason to suspect that synthetic nicotine was going to become a viable product until FDA started putting pressure on the industry and people started scrambling to find alternatives that they could keep selling to people who didn't want to smoke anymore. And they
wouldn't be making money if there wasn't demand. So from consumers.
Right. So this is, and of course, technology evolved and made the process less expensive, made the product more affordable. It's still more expensive than tobacco-derived nicotine, but it is a lot more practical than it used to be. And so synthetic nicotine is absolutely a viable option. CASAA supports the use of synthetic nicotine. And of course, we've had this discussion. We have a whole post about it on our website. You can go check out our thinking on the matter. There may be, of course, an environmental footprint type of benefits here. You don't have to grow acres and acres of tobacco leaf, all the water and fossil fuels involved in doing that. You just synthesize it in a lab. So this may actually be a more sustainable way to provide nicotine to people who benefit from using nicotine. And so, again, all of this, we've got the link to the tweet in our chat if you're interested in checking that out. If you're not following Amanda Wheeler on Twitter, definitely go ahead and give her a follow to keep up with this. And we, of course, will be putting out our own call to action on this and emailing everybody in our membership. And the final thing is, if you are in the state of Hawaii, there is still an effort to veto a bill that would ban flavors down there. And that is, of course, on our website. But that is the non-legislative rundown.
Damn, that could have been a rundown.
Well, I don't want to do it that way.
I could have played the bumper.
I just want to,
for old time's sake.
I just want to clarify.
You want me to play it now? I'll play it now. Don't tempt me. I got my finger on the trigger for it right here, right now.
I just want to clarify our little summer break is not everything. It's just the live show. The Twitter Spaces will still be happening on alternate Wednesdays. And for our viewers, we are, I'm converting those over to YouTube videos so that you can listen to stuff on YouTube. It would be awesome if you guys, we're still going to have the chat. I'm going to do it as a way, pretty much the same way I did it the last time with the Twitter Spaces that we did. I saw some people did show up in the chat, which was great. So if you can keep visiting, it'll be every other Saturday, the opposite one from when the Twitter Spaces is, and kind of help keep our algorithm on. You know, we love you guys, and we love your support, and we just, you know, advocacy can get a little burnt out with all the stuff that's going on in the summer, you know, how things go. So yeah, please come and still watch and help us keep going with the videos that we have on and come listen to it on Twitter too if you want. But I know a lot of people who do like Facebook and I will upload to Facebook too. But I know a lot of you guys, people have their preferences on what they want. Sometimes YouTubers won't go to Twitter and Twitter won't go to Facebook, and you know. So.
I do want to add, this is not kind of a hard and we're not absolutists here. So if there is breaking news over the summer, we will absolutely come on here again and talk about it on a Saturday or whenever we can all get together. But yeah, it is time for us to get our Saturdays back for a little bit and get some headspace and take a breather. So thank you everyone for showing up.
Abolishing the FDA, then we're definitely going to have an episode.
Right.
What a beautiful day that would be. Anyway.
Right.
I'll stop daydreaming about it now. I think we should all go act up and sit down at the FDA. Anyways, that's going to do it this week for us here. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Thank you guys for joining us. Yeah, like Kristen said, we're definitely going to have content that's still going to be going up on social media. Please try to tune in if you can, if you want to. Put it on in the background while you're doing whatever else around the house or around the yard. Not only does it benefit you and the gaining of knowledge, but it also helps us in that pesky algorithm. So, it's a win-win situation for everybody. There will be a podcast version of this episode. I know you guys already just watched it, but tell your friends, tell people who like podcasts. Hey, check out CASAA over on SoundCloud. We're also on Apple Podcasts and all over the place as well. So check it out, follow along, subscribe, do all the things, click all the buttons, punch your computer, do it all. Don't really punch your computer though. Maybe just a little, but not hard. Otherwise, I think we covered our vacation. We've got the podcast. If you're not a member of CASAA, you're absolutely doing everything wrong. Leave immediately. Head over to CASAA.org. Sign up, become a member. It's absolutely free. We promise we're not just going to fill your inbox with 30 emails a day. That's not what we do here. You're only going to get the best and most important ones. But absolutely head over to CASAA.org. And while you're there, drop your testimonial. We have over 13,000, I believe, right? We've broken 13,000. Oh, yeah.
I think 13,700, I believe.
Oh, we're well approaching 14.
Yeah. Creeping up
there. Get your testimonials in. Please share with us and share with everyone else how you quit smoking, what products worked for you. Share it. It's great. Ours are all in there. I'm assuming Alex and Kristen have testimonials in there. Mine is absolutely in there somewhere. Go ahead and share your testimonials. Kristen does an amazing job. She pulls testimonials and puts cool graphics to them, shares it around. I always, whenever we share one on Instagram, it goes into my story. I share them all over Twitter. And it's just really great to see and hear and connect with other people and their stories, because your story, my story, Alex's, Kristen's, everybody here, Breeze Tone's story, Skip Murray's story, everybody's story matters. So get your testimonials in. And while you're there, if you want to check out some sweet merch and you want to be that walking billboard of tobacco harm reduction, you can do that over on the CASAA merchandise page. Check it out. Do all the things on CASAA. There's lots to do, lots of clicky maps to explore, lots of historical timelines and facts and studies and all sorts of stuff. Great ways to get involved. And also check out, if you are on Facebook, your state page. We've got them all. If you live in a state, we have that state. We have that page. It's there. It exists, and you can join it. I think that's it for my spiel.
Done with the spiel?
Cool.
I think the spiel is over.
Guys, have a really great summer. We're going to miss you, and we'll see you back in September. But please check out our Twitter. We'll have something up every other Saturday still, regardless. So,
yeah, absolutely. And every other Wednesday on Twitter, still doing the live things. Yep. Still doing the live things. But we don't have to get all dressed up and pretty, and Alex doesn't have to swoop his hair for any shows or anything. He can just hang out in his pajamas and,
He likes that part.
Yeah. That's why I used to only do audio-only podcasts. Look, you guys, some days I sit here, and the secret about podcasting or YouTubing or doing any kind of content is we're not always wearing pants. I am currently wearing pants. We're not always wearing pants. Ask Matt Cully how many times he wears pants when he makes videos. Not often. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how often Matt wears pants, and I'm not going to speculate.
You guys,
that's it.
All the dads out there, happy Father's Day tomorrow.
Happy Father's Days.
And dads, grandparents, happy Father's Day and happy 4th of July when it's coming up soon. And enjoy your summer. Try to relax. Try to have some fun. Breathe. All right. Bye.